Kindness is often imagined as light, soft, gentle, and unshakable. Yet, beneath the surface of every smile and every selfless act, there can lie shadows unseen. A hand extended may carry a weight of expectation. A generous word may hide unspoken resentment, or even quiet self-interest. The human heart, so capable of compassion, is equally capable of manipulation through care. It is here, in the subtle space between giving and expecting, that kindness bends. Sometimes it is a mask. Sometimes it is a chain. And sometimes, it is a mirror reflecting our own vulnerabilities and insecurities back to us. Observing the darkness in kindness is not about cynicism. It is about understanding the hidden currents that shape human connection, the truths we rarely admit even to ourselves. Shadows in the gesture. Kindness often arrives quietly, like a soft wind brushing against the skin. It is easy to see the surface. A smile offered to a stranger, a helping hand extended without question, a word spoken to soothe another's pain. Yet beneath these simple acts, there exists a hidden landscape. Even the most genuine gestures carry layers that are rarely visible, even to those giving them. A compliment may conceal insecurity. A favor may harbor expectation. And sometimes, kindness becomes a quiet theater, where the actor and the audience are one and the same. Consider a small act, holding a door open. At first glance, it is pure and simple. But within the human mind, subtle currents are stirred. Perhaps it is the desire to be seen as courteous, to earn approval from an unseen observer. Perhaps it is a way to assert control over the rhythm of interaction, to create an imbalance of favor. These are not conscious manipulations in most cases. They are shadows, lingering behind a luminous intention, quietly shaping the gesture. Kindness can also be transactional without anyone realizing it. A gift given may be intended to please, but it can also serve as a silent ledger, a subtle claim on future gratitude. A listener may nod, empathize, or console, yet beneath the surface, there is often a desire to receive acknowledgement, reassurance, or emotional safety in return. The heart in these moments is not entirely free. It is tethered, even lightly, to the expectation of response. This does not make the act false, but it makes it human. Every gesture of care is layered with need, awareness, and a quiet negotiation between self and other. The shadow of kindness is not always obvious to the giver. Many who are generous do not perceive the silent strings that attach themselves to their actions. They may offer freely, yet feel an inexplicable weight afterward, a flicker of frustration, disappointment, or subtle resentment. It is the natural response of a mind that is both generous and vulnerable, capable of empathy but also sensitive to imbalance. The same action can be healing to another and draining to the self, depending on how deeply the currents of expectation run. Social dynamics amplify this shadow. In families, kindness is rarely neutral. A parent's sacrifices are often entangled with hope for obedience or gratitude. Friends who always give may expect reciprocity, consciously or unconsciously, and when it is absent, tension arises. Even strangers are not immune. A simple favor can ripple with subtle social pressure, nudging behavior or creating silent obligations. In these moments, kindness is no longer a purely radiant force. It becomes a delicate negotiation between intention and effect, a dance with unseen consequences. And yet, the presence of shadow does not negate the beauty of kindness. It is not corruption, nor is it failure. It is complexity. Human hearts do not operate in absolutes. Generosity can coexist with subtle need. Compassion can mingle with desire for recognition. The duality of light and shadow is what makes kindness alive, what makes it deeply human. Recognizing these layers does not demand cynicism. Rather, it invites awareness, a gentle reflection on why one gives, and what the heart quietly hopes for in return. Roots of compassion and control. Kindness, as it turns out, does not emerge from a vacuum. It grows from soil rich with memory, habit, and longing. From the earliest days of life, humans are shaped by experiences that teach them when to give, when to hold back, and why care can carry both warmth and weight. A child who receives love freely may grow into a generous adult, seeing kindness as natural, effortless. But a child whose affection is conditional, given only when expectations are met, learns a different lesson: that kindness is never purely about the other, that giving and approval are entwined. These early imprints quietly seed the dual nature of compassion, intertwining genuine care with subtle threads of control. In families, these patterns are often unspoken. A parent may lavish attention when the child succeeds, and withdraw it when the child falters. A smile, a word of praise, a gesture of support, each becomes a currency. The child grows to associate kindness with obligation, or even with emotional safety tethered to performance. As adults, they carry these echoes, sometimes unaware, into friendships, relationships, and professional interactions. They may give generously, yet feel an internal ledger balancing what is offered against what is returned. The act of kindness becomes inseparable from an expectation, a subtle attempt to influence or secure connection. Cultural and societal forces amplify these patterns. Communities celebrate generosity, yet quietly enforce reciprocity. In some contexts, giving is a mark of status, a proof of moral virtue, or a signal of trustworthiness. To participate in this social dance is to navigate not only one's own intentions but the invisible codes of approval and judgment. Kindness becomes layered, a blend of altruism and negotiation, a reflection of both individual upbringing and collective expectation. One may smile, one may help, and yet beneath the visible gesture lies a complex network of learned behaviors, unconscious motives, and social instincts. Childhood experiences, however, are not deterministic. They are lenses through which the adult mind interprets interactions. A person who learned that affection must be earned may, in adulthood, become a giver who secretly measures the world against internal standards of reciprocity. They may unconsciously use generosity to manage relationships, to maintain equilibrium, or to avoid rejection. Even when fully conscious of this pattern, it is rarely easy to disentangle intention from habit. The roots of kindness and control are intertwined, branching deep into emotional memory, nourished by both necessity and desire. Yet these roots are also the source of resilience. The same upbringing that teaches caution and subtle negotiation teaches empathy, attunement, and insight. The human heart, trained by early experience, becomes sensitive to the needs of others, finely tuned to the rhythms of emotion and expectation. This sensitivity can be a gift, allowing connection, support, and compassion to flourish. But it also carries responsibility, the responsibility to recognize when giving is motivated by fear or obligation, and when it is a true reflection of care. Awareness of these origins allows one to hold both light and shadow simultaneously, without judgment. In observing the origins of kindness, it becomes clear that giving is never simple. It is a language learned early, encoded in the body and mind, repeated across years of interaction. To understand the roots of compassion is to glimpse the architecture of human behavior, the delicate balance between desire for connection and the impulse to influence, the constant negotiation between authentic generosity and learned expectation. Each act of kindness carries echoes of its origin, shaping not only the giver but the space between people, the invisible bonds that define relationships. And so, the story of kindness is also a story of human history, memory, and growth. It is a reminder that what appears simple on the surface often carries the weight of centuries of evolution, early lessons, and intimate experiences. Recognizing these roots does not diminish the beauty of care. It deepens it, illuminating the intricate forces that shape why and how humans give, and why the shadows sometimes linger alongside the light. The science of altruism. Beneath the poetry of kindness lies a complex biological and psychological machinery. The human brain, while capable of extraordinary empathy, operates according to patterns shaped by evolution. Acts of giving are not merely moral choices, they are chemical, neurological, and deeply ingrained behaviors. When someone offers help, a part of the brain lights up in reward circuits. Dopamine surges, oxytocin flows, and a sense of satisfaction, even subtle euphoria, is felt. The act of kindness is, in a way, physically pleasurable. The brain rewards generosity because over millennia cooperation has ensured survival. The mechanisms are not cold, they are intimately tied to human connection, but they reveal that every gesture carries biological incentives alongside conscious intent. Psychology deepens the story. Social reciprocity is a silent law. From infancy, humans are wired to expect a balance. A smile returned, a gesture mirrored, a favor repaid. Studies in developmental psychology show that even toddlers exhibit sensitivity to fairness. Giving, therefore, is not purely altruistic. it is interwoven with expectation and anticipation. The pleasure of helping others is often entwined with a subtle, unconscious hope that the favor will be acknowledged, that trust will be reinforced, or that status within a social group will be maintained. Even acts done in isolation are filtered through internal calculations of value and consequence. But the neuroscience of empathy carries its paradox. Mirror neurons, which allow humans to feel and internalize the emotions of others, create deep resonance with another's experience. When witnessing suffering, the brain often reacts as though the pain were one's own. The consequences are double-edged. While compassion is powerful and motivating, it also induces stress, emotional fatigue, and sometimes resentment. A person who constantly gives may experience what psychologists call empathic distress, the discomfort of over-identification with others' needs. In this way, science shows us that kindness is not inherently light. It has a weight, a neurological footprint that can be both uplifting and exhausting. Neuroscientific studies also reveal that altruism can be selective. The brain distinguishes between in-group and out-group members, often favoring those who are socially or genetically closer. This innate partiality suggests that even when humans act generously, they are guided by subtle, evolutionary biases. Compassion is rarely indiscriminate. It is sculpted by survival instincts, cultural context, and personal attachment. Understanding these biases does not diminish morality. It deepens our understanding of why kindness sometimes falters, why resentment arises when expectations are unmet, and why the dark side of giving exists even in well-intentioned hearts. The psychology of kindness further shows how self-concept intertwines with generosity. People often give to reinforce identity, the self-image of being caring, moral, or virtuous. The act of giving becomes a mirror reflecting values and desired perceptions. When expectations clash with reality, when gratitude is absent or boundaries are crossed, internal tension arises. The same neural circuits that reward giving can trigger subtle frustration when the social or emotional return is lacking. In this way, science illuminates the hidden emotional mechanics behind the shadows of generosity. Even decision-making in altruism is complex. Cognitive psychology demonstrates that humans weigh effort, risk, and reward, even subconsciously, before acting. A seemingly spontaneous act may be influenced by learned patterns, social conditioning, or anticipated recognition. These insights do not strip kindness of authenticity. Rather, they reveal that every gesture is the product of intertwined layers: instinct, social wiring, personal history, and conscious choice. Recognizing these layers allows one to witness kindness as a deeply human, multifaceted phenomenon, luminous, yet entwined with shadow. Understanding the science of altruism reframes the way we perceive giving. It is not merely moral or ethical, it is physiological, emotional, and psychological. The brain rewards it, the body responds, and the mind interprets. And yet, in this interplay of neurons and social expectation, the darkness of kindness is visible. Fatigue, subtle resentment, internal negotiation, and unspoken need. To observe this is not to judge. It is to honor the profound complexity of what it means to care and to give, and to navigate the delicate balance between light and shadow within the human heart. Inner tension and resistance. Kindness, while often celebrated as effortless and pure, can stir quiet unrest within the heart. The act of giving is rarely without internal friction. Even those who sincerely wish to help may feel an undercurrent of hesitation, doubt, or subtle irritation. A simple gesture, a favor offered, a comforting word spoken, can awaken a tension that is difficult to name. It is the friction between genuine care and the hidden strings of expectation, the dissonance between what one wants to give and what the heart unconsciously hopes to receive. In this quiet space, kindness becomes both a gift and a burden, an intimate negotiation between self and other. The conflict often begins in awareness. A person may recognize a desire to help but simultaneously feel resistant. Perhaps the request infringes on personal time, energy, or boundaries. Perhaps giving triggers memories of past imbalances, of favors unreturned, of care ignored, of emotional debts that were never acknowledged. The mind, attuned to fairness, notices these subtle echoes, generating unease. The heart, in turn, struggles between two impulses: the desire to act compassionately and the instinct to protect itself from overextension. Psychologists refer to this as the tension of moral obligation versus self-interest. Giving, even when voluntary, can activate internal monitors that assess cost, reward, and potential vulnerability. This is not inherently selfish. It is the mind's way of safeguarding emotional resources. Yet when these processes are unconscious, the tension manifests as guilt, frustration, or passive resistance. A person may comply outwardly, smiling and nodding, while internally wrestling with resentment or fatigue. These conflicting currents reveal that kindness is rarely a simple transaction. It is a dynamic interplay of empathy, history, and self-preservation. Resistance can also emerge from fear. Fear of being exploited, misunderstood, or manipulated often shadows generosity. The human heart, attuned to subtle social cues, detects imbalance and inequity even before they manifest overtly. This awareness may trigger hesitation, a soft recoil that protects yet sometimes limits authentic connection. Within this friction lies a profound truth. The capacity to give is inseparable from vulnerability. To extend care is to expose oneself to disappointment, imbalance, and the weight of expectation. It is a paradox that kindness demands openness even as it invites tension. Yet the tension is not purely negative. It serves as a mirror to the self, reflecting boundaries, values, and emotional resilience. Inner resistance teaches the giver to discern where generosity is nourishing and where it becomes draining. It highlights the complex ethics of care, the subtle difference between giving to genuinely support another and giving to soothe one's own discomfort, to ease guilt, or to maintain social approval. Within this awareness, the shadows of kindness gain clarity, revealing both limitations and possibilities. Many individuals live with unexamined resistance, perceiving guilt or frustration as personal failure. But when observed without judgment, these tensions become data, illuminating the architecture of emotional life. The interplay between giving and restraint, between compassion and self-preservation, is not a flaw, it is the human condition. The heart's elasticity, its capacity to stretch and recoil, allows both love and protection to coexist. Recognizing this inner dialogue is the first step toward conscious, balanced kindness, a giving that honors both the self and the other. Moment of realization. There comes a quiet moment, often unnoticed at first, when the heart begins to see clearly. It is the instant when the patterns of giving, the gestures, the shadows, the subtle negotiations, become visible not as flaws but as truths. One may notice the flicker of expectation behind a smile, the unspoken ledger in repeated favors, or the tension that quietly accompanies generosity. The realization is not harsh or accusatory. It is gentle, meditative, a soft illumination that allows the mind to witness without judgment. Here, awareness is not a condemnation of kindness, but a recognition of its complexity, its depth, and its paradoxical nature. This turning point often emerges through reflection or quiet observation. Perhaps it is sparked by a moment of fatigue after giving too much, or by noticing subtle resentment toward someone one has tried to help. Sometimes it arises through witnessing kindness in others, seeing both the light and the shadow mirrored back. In these observations, a profound truth emerges. The act of giving is never entirely separate from the self. Every gesture carries fragments of history, vulnerability, desire, and hope. The heart begins to see that the line between pure compassion and self-interest is subtle, shifting, and often intertwined. Psychology offers insight into this awareness. When humans observe their own patterns, neural circuits associated with self-reflection and moral reasoning are activated. The mind begins to recognize unconscious motives, internalized expectations, and habitual responses. This realization can be disarming as it gently dismantles previously unquestioned narratives. The belief that all giving is purely selfless, or that kindness is always light and effortless. In truth, generosity is a living, breathing act, capable of illuminating both warmth and shadow simultaneously. The moment of realization is not a single, dramatic event. It is more often a slow dawning, like sunlight creeping across a room. One begins to notice the subtle contracts embedded in social exchanges, the silent debts and expectations that accompany repeated generosity. It becomes clear that kindness is both a gift and a responsibility, not only toward others but toward oneself. The awareness invites a deeper understanding of motives and boundaries, teaching that compassion thrives most fully when the giver is also acknowledged, protected, and attuned to their own needs. Realization also brings freedom. By observing the shadow in kindness without judgment, the heart learns to untangle the threads of expectation from genuine empathy. One sees that giving does not require surrender, nor does it demand sacrifice of authenticity. Awareness allows one to navigate relationships with clarity, to offer care consciously rather than reflexively, and to recognize the humanity in both the giver and the receiver. In this state, acts of kindness are neither heavy nor naive. They are conscious, deliberate, and profoundly human. There is a subtle beauty in this awakening. The shadows of giving are no longer feared or denied. They are acknowledged as part of the texture of human connection. Compassion is appreciated in its full complexity, a force that can heal, bond, and illuminate, yet also challenge, strain, and expose vulnerability. The moment of realization is the quiet turning point, the instant when one begins to see kindness as both luminous and layered, as a reflection of the intricate balance between light and shadow within every heart. In embracing this awareness, the mind and heart find a new rhythm. Giving becomes an act of clarity, not compulsion. Boundaries are respected, emotions are honored, and the delicate dance of generosity is transformed into something conscious and sustaining. The realization is not an end, it is an opening, a space of reflection where kindness is understood in its full spectrum, and where the human heart can navigate its paradoxes with gentle, compassionate insight. Healing the heart's paradox. Once the shadows of kindness are seen, the next step is not to erase them but to integrate them. Healing does not mean rejecting the complexity of giving. It means embracing it, learning to move through life with awareness of both light and dark. The paradox of kindness, the tension between selfless care and subtle self-interest, can be reconciled not by denying one side, but by allowing both to coexist. This is the gentle art of emotional integration, a process of observing motives, acknowledging vulnerability, and honoring limits while remaining open to connection. Healing begins with awareness of self. A person learns to recognize when giving comes from genuine empathy, and when it is influenced by fear, obligation, or desire for approval. This recognition is not shameful, it is clarifying. By acknowledging internal patterns without judgment, one can act consciously, rather than being swept along by unconscious habit. Giving becomes intentional rather than reflexive, rooted in presence rather than expectation. The heart discovers that generosity can flourish most fully when it is conscious, deliberate, and grounded in understanding. Boundaries play a crucial role in this process. True kindness requires self-respect as much as care for others. Setting limits does not diminish generosity, it preserves its integrity. When the giver is emotionally grounded, acts of compassion are free from hidden agendas and resentments. The paradox, that one must protect oneself while offering freely, is resolved not by choosing one over the other, but by holding both in balance. Awareness transforms giving into a mindful, sustainable practice, where care does not deplete but enriches both self and recipient. Forgiveness and self-compassion are also essential. Past patterns, years of giving motivated by fear, guilt, or obligation, can leave residue of frustration or doubt. Healing involves forgiving oneself for unconscious mistakes, and acknowledging that every act of kindness, even those tinged with subtle shadow, contributed to growth and understanding. This gentle reconciliation allows the heart to move forward with clarity, carrying lessons rather than burdens, and cultivating generosity that is authentic, resilient, and compassionate. Healing the heart's paradox also requires reframing expectations. The mind begins to understand that reciprocity is not a guarantee, and that gratitude, while cherished, cannot define the worth of giving. Kindness is recognized as its own reward, a reflection of human connection, empathy, and shared vulnerability. By releasing rigid expectations, one experiences freedom within generosity, offering without compulsion and receiving without entitlement. This delicate equilibrium is the essence of integration, a place where the dual nature of kindness is honored and transformed into conscious care. Finally, healing unfolds through observation and reflection. Moments of tension, subtle resentment, or fatigue are seen not as failures, but as signals guiding attention to boundaries and motives. Acts of generosity are embraced in their full spectrum, spontaneous yet mindful, joyful yet measured, vulnerable yet protected. In this balance, the heart becomes both open and wise, capable of giving freely while remaining grounded, aware, and emotionally intact. The paradox itself becomes a teacher, revealing the nuanced architecture of human compassion and the resilience of the spirit. In learning to heal the heart's paradox, kindness transforms from a reflexive habit into a conscious, luminous practice. The shadows are not denied, they are acknowledged and woven into the rhythm of giving. Through self-awareness, boundaries, and acceptance, the human heart finds harmony within complexity, offering care that is authentic, sustaining, and deeply human. A kindness that reflects both light and shadow, fully integrated into the flow of life. Reflections on the human soul. Kindness, when fully observed, is a mirror of the soul. It reveals the contours of our vulnerability, the depth of our empathy, and the subtle currents of expectation that flow beneath every gesture. In its light, the heart can appear luminous and tender. In its shadow, it can seem fragile and conflicted. To witness kindness in its entirety is to witness humanity itself, capable of warmth, of connection, of generosity, yet also capable of subtle self-interest, fatigue, and hesitation. The human spirit carries both simultaneously, and it is this duality that makes acts of care profoundly real and profoundly human. Reflection allows one to see that the shadows of kindness are not imperfections. They are markers of depth, evidence of the mind and heart negotiating the delicate balance between giving and preserving, between empathy and self-protection. To understand the shadow is not to become cynical. It is to appreciate complexity, to honor the courage inherent in vulnerability. Every gesture, no matter how small, carries the imprint of a living, thinking, feeling being navigating an intricate emotional landscape. The beauty of kindness lies in this complexity, its capacity to heal, to connect, and to illuminate even as it challenges and stretches the heart. Human connection, at its core, is a delicate weave of giving and receiving. The act of offering care is both a reflection of one's inner world and a response to the world of others. When kindness is acknowledged, it strengthens bonds, affirms trust, and creates warmth. When it is unrecognized or misunderstood, it teaches resilience, reflection, and discernment. The shadows and generosity serve as gentle reminders that love, care, and empathy are not simple commodities, but living forces that require awareness, presence, and humility. The human soul grows not only through the acts of kindness it receives but also through the consciousness with which it gives. In quiet moments, one can observe the paradoxical nature of giving and see it as a microcosm of life itself. Light and shadow coexist in every action, every emotion, and every interaction. To deny one aspect is to misunderstand the whole. To embrace both is to witness the beauty of imperfection and the authenticity of human experience. The heart that sees the duality of kindness learns to move gently through relationships, offering care consciously, receiving it gratefully, and understanding that both the giver and the receiver are shaped by memory, emotion, and intention. Ultimately, kindness is not a measure of perfection, nor a standard of morality. It is a living dialogue between souls, a rhythm of connection that is as delicate as it is profound. In observing both its light and shadow, one cultivates empathy not only for others but for oneself. The quiet acknowledgement of complexity brings a deep, meditative peace, an understanding that to give is to be human, to receive is to be vulnerable, and to navigate these intertwined experiences is to inhabit life fully. As the reflections settle, a sense of quiet reverence emerges. Kindness, in all its dimensions, becomes a lens through which the intricacies of the human soul are revealed. It reminds us that vulnerability and strength, light and shadow, self-interest and empathy, are not opposites but companions on the journey of connection. The human heart, in its tender oscillation between giving and protecting, embodies the profound beauty of living. Imperfect, luminous, and infinitely complex. To witness kindness in its totality is to witness the human soul itself, reflective, compassionate, and endlessly alive.